Welcome back to the Carp Chronicles podcast, episode number 44. Although actually it would be more like, I think, 48 if we hadn't had to delete a load. But nonetheless, welcome to episode number 44. Super excited about this episode. We went up to Dave Moore's private lake and just had a freaking great time, to be totally honest with you. Dave Moore needs no introduction with you bait enthusiasts. And yeah, we went up, spent a few days with him, and had a lot of chat and had a lot to drink. And to be honest with you, we were probably a little bit too pissed for this podcast to be as good as it could be. But nonetheless, there is some absolute gold locked away in these episodes. It's going to be split as a two-parter. Of course, this is part one. And yeah, unfortunately, we get more drunk and more drunk as the episodes roll on. I think I was 7 pints deep when we started recording, and that was after a very heavy night the night before. I think we got to bed at around about 3:30 in the morning the night before. So yeah, very, very boozy podcasts. Please excuse any kind of slurring and nonsense that we might come out with, but I think you'll find it's really, really worthwhile listening through the episodes and gleaming as much information as you can from what Dave has to say. Now, before we jump into it, gotta say, very exciting time. Lots of changes with our bait company. Up until now, we were called Bait Bros. Then we went to Carp Chronicles and just had it as Carp Chronicles Bait. And now we've made the choice to have me, Sam, focus on the bait full time. Pete's going to step away from it. The way it was turning out was basically Pete was just posting things and that was pretty much it. Whereas I was more hands-on with development and the other side of things. So everything will be going on, no need to worry. Me and Pete definitely haven't fallen out. We're still buddies. It's just that I'm going to be focusing on the bait side of things. So with that being said, for all of your bait ingredients, pop-ups, flavors, etc., you can now find it at optibaits.com. That's opti, O-P-T-I, baits.com to get your flavors, pop-ups, and all manner of other things. Actually just released 3 new flavors. I won't go into it now. I really want to. I'm super excited about them, particularly the wizard flavor, because I just think that is going to absolutely, be a very, very firm favourite amongst people, to say the least. But I will save it for another episode. But go ahead, check out our new flavours, as well as our Lust Dust, which is basically a very interesting powdered ingredient which will trigger the carp to feed much more enthusiastically. It's all ethical, it's healthy, it's not an unhealthy thing for them to have, but it's very, very different and very, very efficient. That's all I'll say on it. Otherwise I'll be going on for bloody ages, and I don't want to just spam you guys with what I'm doing with bait. I'm just quite excited about it. Of course, we are sponsored by carphuntergiveaways.co.uk. Go ahead, check those guys out, get involved with the prize draws, see what they're up to, see what they're doing. They've got some cool stuff going on. They've recently given away a van. I think they were giving away fishing trips to a very well-known lake the other day. They've got all sorts of fun going on, so please check them out, carphuntergiveaways.co.uk. And lastly, I won't keep you for much longer, but lastly, we are now sponsored by BP Milling, which I'm quite excited about. Again, I will save this for another episode, perhaps when it's a Sam and Pete episode, and we can talk about what Ben's doing with his feed supplies in more detail. But for now, what I'd like you to do is go ahead and check out BP Milling's YouTube channel. Just literally search YouTube for BP Milling. He has got some very, very interesting videos coming up about all manner of different things regarding carp angling. Some of it's going to be about fishery welfare, how to manage a fishery, things like that. But for any angler wanting to get a deeper understanding of how carp work and how to catch more carp, strongly recommend you go ahead and check out BP Milling's YouTube channel. Much more on that to come. That is it. That is enough for the intro. Hop on into this episode. Enjoy it. Maybe grab yourself a beer or a water or a tea, whatever it is you like to drink, and enjoy this episode with Dave Moore. we've got to set the scene for this one because it is a little bit outside of our usual recording environment. I'm sure I've introduced this already, but we're up with Dave Moore on his lake, and the tipple of the episode, which, Dave, you might not know this, but we always have a tipple of the episode. What is our tipple? You're the best man to announce it.
It's a beer called Rudgates, and it's their blonde.
Rudgate's Blonde.
Yeah. Rudgate's Blonde. And I've got to say, I am friends with the owner of the brewery, which is why you're drinking it.
That's it. Well, we sampled it plenty last night, didn't we? So we're all a little bit weary this morning, but yeah, it's lovely.
I'm glad you like it.
No, very easy drinking. So, I mean, I imagine we're going to go on a lot of different tangents in this interview, which is absolutely fine. That's what our guests are accustomed to, and it's what they enjoy. But obviously, the main focus is going to be around bait. So, for you, when did you start getting into creating your own bait? Was that at the beginning of your angling journey, or did you ease into it? What happened?
Well, I mean, it's a long time ago now, but you know, I started carp fishing because of my dad. Told me that you couldn't catch them, so that made it, you know, more. You know, I got to prove him wrong, and it was quite quickly. I mean, I was 14 years old at that time, but you know, you've got to remember, South Yorkshire 14 is different from 14 anywhere else in the world at the moment. You know, a lot of us we're heading for work within 18 months of being 14. You know, so I mean, we were a lot more advanced, and you know, I decided I was going to try and catch carp. I ended up, you know, luckily for me, we'd got a lake near where I lived that had carp in, which back then was, you know, it was unique, and you actually saw them, which again was pretty unique. So I knew they existed, and I knew they were massive, and I knew all the little bits of, you know, that you could pick up from, you know, my other angling experiences, and it was a friend of mine as well decided at the same time he wanted to go and fish for carp. So as a consequence, we decided to go and fish for carp. A very little knowledge. Got to remember, this is mid-70s. Very little knowledge. You know, we little bit from, you know, the odd bit of snippets from Angling Times, Anglers Mail. So we got this idea: free line cheese. We caught crucian carp on cheese, so we should be able to catch big carp on cheese. So we fished with free line cheese, and we actually night fished because you couldn't catch carp in the day. This is what we were led to believe. You had to fish once it was get dark, you know. But you know, after, you know, a couple of Friday night, you know, trips, because, you know, I said we're only kids, we hadn't caught any fish. I actually come across one particular weekend some other carp anglers, bizarrely, you know, going back there, that were certainly different equipment to what we had, because ours was just what we could cobble together. Basically, it was this normal coarse fishing gear that we just uprated as line, you know. But they got biting indicators. They had, you know, proper rods for it, and one of them caught one, and you know, it's biggest carp I've ever seen. You know, I mean, I can't even remember how big it was, but it certainly wouldn't have been biggest carp. But that at the time, it was like, I've got to catch one of them. I've got to catch one of them. And they were, I don't know how old they were. I mean, they were probably early 20s. And, you know, you got a couple of teenage lads that were bugging them. And they eventually said, well, you don't want to be using cheese. You want to try luncheon meat. So next Friday we came armed with tins of luncheon meat, and both me and Pete, who I went with, caught a carp. and we had a couple of takes that we lost. So straight away I realised, there's a big this bait makes a big difference. You can fish with the wrong bait for a long time and be doing everything that you could possibly do right, but they just don't want it. So really, that's when it started, and really progressed from that point. Really.
So how long did it go from you? So I mean that's obviously involved with bait. You've switched baits, you got a result. How long did it take to go from that, switching between different baits to get the result you want, to actually creating your own bait?
Obviously, once we found something that caught fish, we actually carried on using it until we didn't catch any fish anymore on it, and that's when you start thinking about alternatives. So it was probably, I mean, we were both at school, because of term times and season times, it would be the following year before we actually started looking at other things. And I always remember watching. Now, some of your listeners won't have a clue about this program, but there used to be a program when I was a kid called Animal Magic, and they used to have this guy that used to impersonate animals in a zoo. He'd put voices to them. Johnny Morris, they called him. But they used to do little like special features, and one of them was a guy catching carp. And of course, I remember this. So this heavily influenced me, and he went from through the whole process, and he used kitty cat paste. So that was it. That was the next thing we were going to try, kitty cat paste. Well, if you've ever tried to, he didn't tell us about as far as we was concerned, he got a tin of cat food out of a tin and tried to mould it onto a hook. Well, as you know, that doesn't actually work.
You're using the dry.
Well, he'd obviously were putting stuff to it, because my mum stepped in and said, you need to add flour and stuff to make it into something that'll hold together like a bread dough and da-da-da. And so we had a little spell where we fished with, I would say they weren't paste, they were doughs, because we used to use instead of just using flour, we used to get bread mixers, and we used to mix cat food with bread mixers, and it'd make quite a pliable dough that actually would stay on the hook, and would also not dissolve as fast in the water, because because the glutinous nature of it kept it together a bit more. So and we played around with
quite fatty as well, right?
Yeah. We played around with putting cat, like I say, kitty cat. And I literally mean kitty cat. That's what they call the stuff. But it was another mate of mine that told us about using liver patty paste. And I'll always remember the first time we used liver. We did the same with the bread mix and liver patty. Boy, that changed carp fishing for us completely. We could catch them going in an evening. We could catch them going in the day. We got bites within. If the fish was in the area on this lake, we got bites. And I mean, we weren't fishing anything sophisticated. Freelining mainly. So I mean, which is about the most inefficient method you could ever come across. But that's when I realised how important it was.
Well, I'm jumping around already, but you mentioned liver. So I mean, I think actually I'm jumping to a conclusion. I think you're a fan of liver.
Oh yeah,
in
definitely.
Baits. What is it about liver that is so freaking good? Because I'm with you. I'm a liver.
I think there's a few things in liver. I think it's soluble. I mean, if you use the right ones, it's also actually puts a nice taste, and you've got to remember a nice taste to us and a nice taste to a carp. Let's face it, they eat all sorts, but we still don't know. So they obviously do like it. And I mean, so I mean, it's not a. This is 45 years ago. So I mean, there's obviously things that they like that can't be fully explained, and I think liver's one of them.
So obviously that's striking a chord with their gustatory receptors. So what is it, in your opinion, that's in the liver that's lighting up the gustatory receptors and going down well with them, so to speak?
I think, it's probably because if you look at how liver's made, the amino acid, the protein chains within liver, and it depends on which liver it is, probably suits their natural food that they actually eat, because it's not like, because if you think about it, I mean, I've had liver analysed to nth degree. It's not got the same long length protein chain, say, as any meat it comes from, whether that's chicken, beef, pork, or whatever. It's different. It's different. So it's probably closer to something that they can associate with as being naturally there. And it's quite like say you haven't got long chains of amino acids that's heavily bonded, in liver proteins. So again, they're probably being able to
process.
They're probably being able to pick it up far easier. I mean, it's a weird one, because I mean, I've just accepted the fact that liver products have always been good. From the liquid liver ones that we had to all the different powders to the hydrolyzed livers, whether it be beef, pork, chicken, lamb, or whatever. They've always been reasonably good.
There's a lot of nutrients in liver as well, and I'm not usually one for this. I'm more on the science side of things, but if you just look at other areas of nature, a lot of predatory animals, they will eat the liver pretty much first. I mean, everyone thinks of lions when I say that, but it's anything, carrion crows, foxes, whatever. They'll pick out that liver first. It's very
bloody
otters.
As I say, otters
as well. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, and it's like you say, there's probably a far more complex identification of the nutritional value of it. And you've only got to have it analysed. I mean, us humans, can have less problem eating liver than we do other meats. It's actually more beneficial. So I mean, there's a complexity of understanding that animals are probably over evolutionary have picked up that. There probably is. I mean, it's interesting because, like I say, I've not thought about it that way until you've said it, that there's so many creatures will go straight for the bloody liver. The liver I would like to get hold of is a basking shark's one.
Really? Wow. Didn't expect that. Why? Come on then, why?
Well, if you think about what basking shark eat, they are filter feeders, so they eat a lot of krill.
So it's like krill plankton, is it?
Yeah. So, and all this tends to transcend into how that animal is constructed. And believe it or not, its liver is massive. It's nearly, the figure is, I think it's something like a third of its body mass. It's that huge, So I mean, there's a lot of liver there to be had, but I don't think catching basking sharks and processing them to catch carp is probably an ethical thing to do.
It's a niche market, right there.
Yeah, and I mean, I've watched basking sharks. I mean, I don't want people to start to go out and threaten their existence. But the fact is when you start to look at liver, fish livers are probably the best sort of livers to use for what we want, because there's probably added benefits in it since you've gone this route.
I used to use mackerel liver a lot as a mullet bait. I used to absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Did you?
Funny, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Because the only reason I know this about because I once got, well, no, it wasn't me. It was somebody else. They got a bottle of shark liver oil.
Jeez.
And it's the foulest smelling substance you've ever come across.
How's that, sorry to interrupt, how's that manufactured? How do they extract
I don't know how
the
they
lipids
extract
from
it.
the...
I have no idea. But it was he shoved it in front. Here, have a smell at this. He shoved it in front of my nose as a joke, and then he did it to lots of people. And I mean, you've never smelled anything as strong and as, you won't put it down. Like people have a thing about, a lot of the marine meals stinking horrible. Because krill does, it gets in things. It
never bothers me, to be honest.
Yeah, but I mean, but it's a powerful smell. Yeah. This was a powerful smell, but it was a horrible, powerful smell. And I can't really tell you what to compare it to, because there's nothing you can compare it to.
So did you use this in a bait?
No, I wouldn't handle it. But to be truthful, I don't know, and I won't know anybody that would be able to. Without physically being sick. It was that horrible. But it was then that I started to think about fish livers. Because we at the time. I mean, it's going back a few years that I started to look at the various livers that were available, and obviously. The other thing is, early years of a lot of my fishing, I used cod liver oil. That tells you all, cod liver oil. So again, and I swear by, the high quality cod liver oils to this day are a good. If you're going to put an oil in your bait, they're the best one. That's the best one.
Cod liver, yeah. Why is that then?
It's got, well, the percentage of free fatty acids in cod liver oil are the ideal for what a carp needs. That's the first thing. The second thing is they don't all the high quality ones are all have some form of natural antioxidant in them, or they've been treated to keep the oxidation basically non-existent, so you're not feeding them.
It's the same as salmon oil, though, right?
It is to a degree, but if somebody said to me which is the best at the salmon oil and cod liver oil, I'd go for cod liver oil. Right. There's two free fatty acids that essential to carp's health, and it just so happens there's more in salmon oil, more in cod liver oil than there is in salmon oil, and I've always found if I've been using baits that's got a small amount of cod liver oil in, the better. I'll give you for instance, we've used cod liver oil in carp baits a long time before we actually knew we were using it, because most people sort of wouldn't have associated this, and the amount of times I've had to tell people this, but go back years, back to one of the first bird foods I ever used was CLO slough, and everybody accepted that it was bird food. Do you know what CLO stands for?
Cod liver oil.
Correct. And it went in lots and lots and lots of baits. I mean, I learnt about it through fishing in Norfolk through a guy in Norfolk, and it makes such a good. It was such a good additive to the mix. I kept it in for years, and I mean today, if the codler, the CLOs that I see don't look like anything like the ones that I use. But I think we had this conversation earlier. I wrote down everything that was on in CLO from the original bags, because you used to have it all written down, all the ingredients that were on there, and I'd also had it taken apart, so I got to know what the 1970s recipe for CLO was, and so I can replicate it now.
Yeah. You said last night you got a lot of old recipes written down that you're going to give to us. No, I'm joking. In this day and age, though, because I mean, you can't get that bird food anymore. What would you say to someone that's wanting to source a good quality bird food? What would you say to look for?
I mean, what I would say to them is pick the ones that's readily available to you. Have a good look at what's in them and see if you can actually replicate it yourself. Because most of them are just mixes of several different types of seed.
Biscuit, seed, maybe a bit of honey on it.
And you could formulate your own and add bits to it.
Yeah.
And
guarantee you got a supply of it as well.
Precisely. Because all they are, most of them are just ground pulses. That's freely available. Hemp, rapeseed, niger seed, peanut, even what they call the bloody caraway seeds, linseed. They're all sesame seeds, and you can grind all them up and create your own perfect bird food meal. Which is also cost you a lot less. But then you probably have to make a lot more, and you need a grinder. But, that's not an hard thing to do. But that's what I would say. Go if that's what you want to do, you're better off doing it from yourself than buying something that is just a compromise on what we used to have. And you understand why most of them are compromised, don't you? Now, it's because the cost of making some of the things that we had in the past have just got silly, and they just can't economically do it anymore. So
some of the birdies we like the Quicko one. Like they're quite expensive,
Yeah.
They're not cheap at all. And when you look at what's in it, it shouldn't be that expensive.
Yeah, exactly.
I've always been a fan of EMP. Spoke about that a few times on the podcast. It's nice and coarse. I was saying yesterday I do very short session fishing. It just allows for good leakage.
Yeah, I mean, but you could make EMP quite easily.
I'm sure, yeah. Have you seen the tabletop, like, coffee grinders? Have you seen those?
No, but when so I'm massively into coffee, and I got myself, because I thought it felt right. I got myself a manual coffee grinder once, but never again. That's bloody hard work.
Grinding your own bean.
It takes about 10 minutes to grind enough for a cup of tea.
I'm
ridiculous.
Completely idle. I've got an industrial grinder that
well, I've got an electric one now. Just beep. Yeah, job done.
Yeah, mine does 100 kilo.
You're
minutes.
Yeah. You're not on about coffee. Yeah, fair enough.
But yeah, I mean, it's that's what I would say. It's like you've only got to look at what things are made that you can, so instead of relying on a source, buy all the raw ingredients and put it together yourself.
Yeah, and do you know what a big thing, I'm switching gears a little bit, but do you know what a big thing is when you're rolling at home is having the confidence that every ingredient you're using is going to be continued for the foreseeable. Because if you're investing that much time into rolling, that much money into rolling, that much time driving to the lake, money driving to the lake, baiting up, keeping it going, getting it really established and keeping it, and then something gets dropped by a company, you're fucked. Like it can totally change your mix.
Yeah.
And I think any way you can control that continuity of your mix is got to be a plus, isn't it? So
yeah. And I bet you there isn't anybody that listens to this that makes their own bait that's of a certain age hasn't at some stage lost something that they wish they still had.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, oh, yeah.
And I certainly, I've lost loads of things.
Multiple times. Yeah.
You know, because, I mean, we spoke about this yesterday, you know, we as a you know, the carp bait industry is reliant on lots of other industries. We don't have a voice really. We are a byproduct of the pet food industry, you know the milk industry, the fish meal industry. We're just a byproduct. We just happen to be on the sidelines. So
At the mercy of it, really.
yeah, we are. I mean, just look what happened a couple of years ago. You know, hydrolyzed krill liquid vanished. Yeah, vanished.
Bath have just rebrought. They've started their own.
Yeah, they've started making their own.
But,
Yeah, but I mean, it vanished.
Yeah.
It
You're right.
vanished, and that was
0-30, everyone's favourite.
Again,
I mean,
vanished.
gee, how many people are relying on that?
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all them liquids were used prior. It's a word I always have trouble with. Was used mainly for the pet food industry.
Yeah.
And the thing is with the pet food industry, it's very fickle. Them dogs and cats and everything else are very fickle creatures, and they constantly have to keep changing the recipes to keep selling products because they do get bored. You know, and I mean, I've seen it time and time again. Consistency is a very, very big issue to keep for long periods of time. You know, in fact, to the point where I'll say it's almost impossible. Luckily, we do have from time to time things that come along that's new, that are actually better. So it's kept us really going. You know. I mean, we just named a product. I mean, back in the 80s, you know, milk proteins, bird foods, fish meals. You know, fish meals were, you know, whitefish, capelin, sardine, anchovy. You know, by the middle of the 90s, I got my first sack of krill meal. You know, which was a product I never even heard of till then. And then there's a couple more. So there's others, and I mean, the first time I saw the breakdown of krill meal, I mean, it was a lad called Dave Poxon sent me the breakdown and says, "What do you think to this?" And I looked at it and I thought, Jesus, what's this? And then he sent me a sample of what it was, and obviously the smell and all the other stuff. I thought, brilliant. You know, so there is things that come along to help us replace the things that we've lost.
Yeah.
You know, and there will be in future, which keeps, I suppose, it a little bit fresh. But it would be nice to have some consistency. You know, one thing for certain.
Definitely.
Yeah.
What do you think of these insect meals coming onto the market, Dave?
I mean, again, the protein sources from insects I've had a good look at, and they're no more available than a milk protein or a fish meal protein. I mean, and they're not vastly different in amino acid profiles. You know, the ones that I've looked at anyway. Because I mean, we've all heard of the word nutritional value. Mm-hmm. I've never liked it because it doesn't really. It's not what we need to be doing. A bait doesn't need to have a high nutritional value, because I can create a bait that's got a mega high nutritional value, but it's completely undigestible. Mm-hmm. You know, so it's really nutritional availability that, if that's the way we should go. You know, if you're going to make a bait, you want to make it nutritionally available.
Yeah.
The insect meals are no more nutritionally available than fish meal, the raw insect meals than fish meals or milk proteins, or some of the seed proteins are harder. You know, but you know, they're certainly not revolutionary.
No, you see it as a worthy equivalent now.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
You know, but they'd still, for me, I would still want to mess around with them to make them better for what I want. You know, I wouldn't be using them in the raw state. Same as, you know, I tend to, I'll use milk proteins in the raw state, and I'll use fish meals in the raw state. All the others, I need to mess with them, because, you know, when I say mess with them, I need to add something to make them more nutritionally available, because, you know, I know that it's my theories of the best baits are ones that can go through the stages that I perceive a carp needs to have a bait that, how do we say this? It's got to have a certain set of properties, and they're not all purely nutritional, because of how a carp's biology works and how it eats, etc. You know, so, you know, I mean, for a start, if a bait, you look at a carp, how it detects this. We'll go back to this, how it detects it, but let's go to the simplistic mechanics of how they eat. Carp's got to be able to turn whatever it eats into a slurry, because that's what it needs. You know, because it's a stomachatless fish. All it's got is a gastrointestinal tract, you know, which is very similar to our intestine to absorb its food. So first thing it's got to be able to do is prepare it in a way that it's going to be able to extract it in its digestive system it's got. So it's got to be able to crush it. It's got to be able to crush it, grind it, turn it into a slurry. So if you've got a bait or you know, that mechanical that doesn't break down that easy. I'll give you, for instance, and I mean it makes me laugh, when people go on about pre-soaking baits before they use them, because the fish don't eat them for the first few days. Why do you think that is? Simple. Mechanically, they're just too hard to eat for them. They just leave them. I mean, but if you produce a bait that they can eat easily from day one, they eat it, you know, and be able to process it.
Yeah, I think with soaking baits though, like that bait, that boilie, we're talking about boilies, aren't we, really? It's got to draw in the water before it can start releasing the attractants. I think that's part of it. And then again, you got tiger nuts, which are freaking hard, aren't they?
Yeah.
And they're eating them. Peanuts. Yeah. I mean, I fish with peanuts quite a lot. Yeah. Got to prepare them right, obviously, you know, all that sort of jazz, but they're hard to eat and they'll still eat them, you know?
Yeah, and if you come across, I mean, but tell me anybody that fishes with tiger nuts and puts 5 kilos of them in.
Yeah, Pete does. No, I'm joking.
They don't.
No, they don't. They
don't.
No, you don't need to though, do you?
No, because I mean, I've never been able to fathom that out. But when it comes to boilies, I've always found a boilie that can be. I used to roll them in my hand to make them turn into a crumb. You know, and they had to do that. And I always found that baits that did that were always that. You know, that was one step in the chain of being able to, you know, have a successful bait.
Is there anything that people are regularly putting in their mixes that you think are hampering the bioavailability of ingredients?
Yeah, eggs.
Eggs, yeah. Largely unavoidable though in a boilie, right?
Yeah.
Well, they're not. You can.
Yeah. I mean, we had a little bit of talk about this, and yes, there is a few things that besides eggs that people don't realise that inhibitors, you know, principally trypsin protease type inhibitors, which is, you know, what that's all the carp's got. I mean, some of the, you know, I'll give you one product, soy isolate. Soy isolate is a complete trypsin inhibitor. Soya flour's not. Soya isolate is.
Yeah, heat treated though. If it's heat treated, I believe that nullifies the the inhibition of trypsin?
I don't. The only soy I haven't used soil isolate since 1981, but certainly the stuff in 1981 was a complete and utter trypsin block.
Yeah, I think full fat heat treated, you're okay, aren't you?
I don't know. I'll be honest with you. It's not one that I've come across for a long time.
Okay.
I'll have to check that one out myself. Yeah.
Check it up. Yeah, I believe you'll be all right. I mean, I'm not suggesting it's something that people should use in high quantities.
Yeah.
But to fill a gap, aid with rolling, I think it's probably got a place in a well-rounded bait.
Yeah.
But yeah, I understand what you mean on it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to go and we'll leave this in the podcast. I'm going to go and pour a pint. I should have set the scene a little bit better in the beginning. We're in Dave's lodge on his lake. He's very kindly got a 72 pint keg of beer in for us. We worked through a lot of it last night and we're working through a lot now. I'm pretty pissed. I think I'm on my 7th pint from my Kansas earlier. I'm going to go and get another one. Pete, do you want one?
Yes, please. Absolutely.
Dave, do you want to top up? You're all...
I'm fine.
Right.
Dave, you've sort of you wanted to bring up a few other points.
Yeah. I mean, having had a little break and a reboot of my brain, I mean, one of the biggest ones that we used to use extensively, which I think more. I certainly don't know anybody that uses it, but that don't mean that they don't. Is wheat gluten. And anything that's got a high glutinous content tends to be a trypsin inhibitor. So some of the starchy stuff that you can, I don't think some of your members might remember this name, farina, which was a potato starch binder. Again, big trypsin inhibitor. And I mean, I didn't mention eggs, but you can actually process eggs to reduce their ability to inhibit trypsin, which is through an emulsification process, which I'm glad to say I've got access to, and so all my baits are made with fresh egg, but they've gone through emulsification process before they have.
You were saying last night that you believe powdered egg to be a better ingredient than fresh egg. If we don't have this machinery, which obviously most of us don't.
Without a doubt. I mean, it's the process in creating powdered egg. You still keep the binding qualities, but you've reduced some of the inhibiting factors that comes from eggs, which is the fats that's in eggs because they are extracted. And that's better. So I mean, at one stage I would have turned around and never thought that there'd be an advantage to using powdered egg over fresh egg, but now I definitely believe that to be the case. Yeah. I mean,
and it's cheaper and easier to store as well. So win-win.
Yeah, it's less messy. And I mean, it depends how you want to look at it from the cheap. It depends on how many eggs you're buying. If you're buying them, a ton at a time, they're probably not, because but certainly for somebody that's making their own bait, having a box with a couple of kilos of egg powder in is.
You're looking at like £3 or £4 a kilo, I think, for egg powder. You add that makes up the equivalent of so many eggs. Obviously, it's mostly water you add. It's pretty good value.
Yeah.
You can get a lot more liquid food in as well.
Yeah, because you can use them. Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys mentioned, but regarding soy flour, but obviously soy flours are sort of like can be a well-known trypsin inhibitor.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wish I could remember the name of the aspect of it that makes soya flour toxic until it's treated, and I can't remember its bloody name. That's why if you're using a flour, it has to soya flour. It has to be heat treated. Going back to the soya isolate, I'm certain that even soya isolate, even if it's gone through that heat treat process, because of how what's been removed from it, and it's actually it's protein profile, its amino acid profile, I'm certain it's still a trypsin inhibitor.
Was it lower temperature maybe or not?
I can't remember. I'm trying to drag it at me because I'll be honest with you, I dismissed it so long ago. I've never gone back to re-examine it, if you know what I mean.
What do you think about, so obviously trypsin inhibitor, I'm sure most of our listeners will know, basically it will inhibit the carp's ability to break down protein. What's your thought about phytic acid within baits, and that being an anti-nutrient which will basically pull minerals away from the carp?
Again, why would you want to have them in a bait?
You wouldn't, that's what I'm saying.
So, providing you go through the process that reduces their proliferation in the bait that you're using, and I know all the baits I use are definitely had that taken into account. I wouldn't say eradicate it completely because it's impossible to do.
Very hard to do.
Yeah. But certainly you can put things in that actually, I wouldn't say neutralise them, make them less active. Because of my commercial connections to the company that sponsors me, I know we've got something that we put in ours to reduce that, and I'm not willing to tell
able
everybody.
to tell us.
Because it's a bit like I said earlier, Coca-Cola remains the best Coke because of one reason and one reason only, because nobody knows what the recipe is. Yeah, but yeah, there is. I mean, and people, if they do go and search, they can find, with a little bit of knowledge and research, they can find what they need to do to add to the baits, and it's only in small quantities. It's it's not a hard thing to do to reduce that. Yeah.
So you mentioned rolling baits. What is? I know you used to.
I never mentioned the name. I said just mentioned somebody that sponsored me.
Oh shit! Well, I mentioned the name then.
Rolling baits does sponsor me.
You used to own it. What's your involvement with them now?
Basically, I think probably the best way to put it, I'm a thorn in their side. I mean, they've gone through quite a change from how it all started, and I mean, to a full blown bait company. Because at one stage they were doing bespoke work for people and but now they basically do very little, except for the customers that they had that had bespoke stuff. They still look after them. They're not going to drop them, but they've gone more into doing their own baits. And I've said doing their own baits, doing baits, everyone which I've been involved with, and I mean my role really is. I'm the R&D guy, basically, if you want to put it that. But by the same token, I do this because of my interest, and they've invested a hell of a lot of time and money into some of the things that I've been doing over the last few years, and we've got some good stuff to bring to the front, which they will no doubt market as time goes on. I mean, if anybody wants to know any more about that, we could talk about it in a bit. Further down the line, if you want to continue just talking about where we were, it's up to you.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll come back on to the baits that they offer. I mean, we were speaking here last night. God knows how many pints deep, but we were talking about hydrolysis, and I would love to talk to you about hydrolysis. You're the man to talk to, I think, in the UK about hydrolysis. We'll come to that. I know some of the baits, one of them in particular, is made up of 80% of basically a hydrolysis product, a cake as you'd call it. So that will be very interesting for the listener. We'll definitely come on to that further down the line. But no, I was just interested in your level of involvement. As I understand it, nowadays it's a bit of an outlet for you to experiment, and your successes seem to kind of come to market in terms of their bait, right?
Yeah.
So that was it. So I mean, let's say when you're creating a bait, a new bait, let's say it's not a tweak of a previous recipe, how do you start? Is it that you're fishing in new water, it's got X characteristic, you're trying to build it around that? Or is it that you find a new ingredient and you're trying to build something around to complement that? How does it start?
It's got to start. I mean, there's got to be something thrown in front of me that's worth considering to be turned into a bait. Because, going back to, my early, the 70s, the early 80s, I built a bait that was built around things that had been put in front of me at the time. And I've been lucky. Because of my education, etc., I've been able to use other people to fill in the gaps that I didn't know. I mean, especially at a time when there wasn't a thing called the internet. So so it's always when people's thrown things in, or something's appeared that wanted, deserved a consideration and turn into a bait. I could go through, krill meal. Like I say, I think I possibly was the first person to use a bait that had krill meal in, because I didn't know anybody else that had used it. Not mid-90s, and I used another meal with it, which I no longer can get, which is going back to the stuff that what we're talking about. You get something, use it, you drop it. It was called crawfish meal. Now that's the American spiny lobster.
Yeah.
So it's
similar to crayfish, right?
No, crawfish are a sea-going lobster.
Oh shit! I didn't know that.
Yeah, they are a spiny lobster.
Right.
That's so Americans. If you say to crawfish to an American, they automatically see it as what we know as a spiny lobster. So it was a spiny lobster meal, and it came from America. But it disappeared. Don't ask me why. It disappeared. I can't get it anymore. But I confronted with them two products, I then made a bait around them. So coming back to what you were saying, how do I start thinking about creating another bait? Because to be honest with you, I don't really need to create other baits unless I think
how
it's
many
worthwhile.
do you need to create? Exactly.
Yeah, if I think it's worthwhile. Yeah. I mean, I think for a long time, the thing that's bugged me the most about the commercial carp fishing side of bait making is the availability of products, and the fact that we're always the poor relation really to all the other companies that produce things that's far bigger and more mass produced for other entities than bait. So we just bolt onto them. And with that in mind, I thought, well, it's about time we actually created something, a product that was specifically engineered for bait making. And that's really what I've been doing the last few years. It's not actually taking ingredients, taking this meal, that meal, other meal, and making a bait. It's about actually creating a substance that suits the nutritional requirements. It's all right, I'm laughing because somebody's picking the wrong glass up.
To fucking smack you.
The nutritional requirements and for a carp bait in a fishing situation, and it's been a bit of a slog really, because I mean I originally used, because I've got links with the commercial feed industry, the pellet making industry. I've got people that I know in that industry that are on doing frontline research with lots more money than we can ever hope to have. Yeah. So I mean, and taking from them and what they were looking at doing, because theirs is always based on a significantly different economic cycle than us. I mean, you're talking very minimal, costs, etc. As opposed to carp bait, you can do a little bit more. So the last few years, I've been looking at putting together it's synthetically produced. It's a synthetically produced protein, vitamin, mineral source to turn into a bait. And
so when you say synthetically produced, what does that mean?
But right, it's a mixture of ingredients that is put together to create the perfect nutritional requirement for a carp, and with a very high degree of nutritional availability.
But how are you producing the synthetic ingredients?
It's a mixture of various meals that then goes through our hydrolysis process that changes it into this.
And you were saying it's not something that is it's not quantifiable by standard machinery. You were saying that?
Oh no.
It's like it's made its own kind of substance.
Yeah. It is. If you look at the ingredients we use, to produce this are standard bait ingredients. On their own, if you analyse your work together, once they're all put together and gone through this process, their identity's gone completely. They don't, this is a whole new product. It's not. You can't say you couldn't, because it's got fish meal, it's got pulse meals in it, it's got some milk proteins in it, but once it's gone through this process, because the hydrolysis process that it goes through breaks down so many of them links that identify each of them products, it's no longer identifiable as them products. It becomes a completely new entity.
Yeah.
Are they going through this process at the same time, or are they doing that individually and then combining?
No, it took a while, but we've got it to do it all in one go. It takes about 12 hours to do it, and I mean, a hell of a lot of time and effort and research, but we've got it down to a fine art now. And I mean, and it's not the easiest thing to do, but it's not hard, and it's not a very expensive process, because you can take stuff that would normally be viewed as being just average, but by breaking the right peptide links,
becomes special.
It becomes better.
Yeah.
So consequently, economically, it becomes a viable thing to do. And I mean, I mentioned it. What is end? All we call it is cake, because when you start with this product, it's not. I've never come. I mean, I've made lots of baits. I've never come across something that physically has changed so much.
You said last night you wouldn't fucking recognise it as the same.
No,
what you put in and what you get out.
No, you
just
wouldn't.
Not connecting them.
You wouldn't connect it at all.
Incredible.
Not at all. Even through analysis, you wouldn't, because I've tried it. And it's just like it just comes out as
I can't get my head around that.
It just comes a combination of short chain proteins.
Yeah.
Just a mix of short, and because it's just a mix of short chain proteins, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm. So obviously this is like a powdered additive, isn't it? It's not a liquid.
No, it's mixed.
No. When we've done it, it's a cake.
Right.
We call it a cake because it's got a moisture content because we start with powdered ingredients. By the time it's gone through its process, it ends up, it's a cake. It's a really weird sort of like, I don't know, it's because I couldn't explain an analogy to give you what it feels like, but it's not like a paste. It's not like a paste, and it's not like a. The reason I call it a cake, I'll tell you exactly how. And your readers are not going to. Your listeners are not going to understand this at all. But the reason I referred to it as a cake is when I worked in the mining industry, some of the coal processing stuff we used to do, we used to produce a thing called filter cake, which is really, 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 really fine coal particles. Mm-hmm. And it reminded me of that. That's why I started calling it a cake.
So if I was holding this in my hand, what would it, how would you describe that to the listener? What would it be like?
It's cold. That's the one thing. It's cold and feels like, it's not like I say, it's not sticky like a paste.
No. But it's held together in a solid substance.
Sort of, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's like I say, it's. I wouldn't even say it's a soggy cake because it's not that soggy. If you know what I mean, it's not.
You're gonna have to get the keys to the factory, Dave. Fire up those machines.
I mean,
let us know
it doesn't actually feel like. It's a bizarre texture.
Yeah.
Very bizarre texture.
And this something struck a chord with me, like last night. This is not for the podcast. This is when we weren't recording. But you said, like, actually, the bait that it makes is a very interesting bait that you could probably have charged a lot of money for.
Yeah.
But actually, because this process that you're on about to make this cake is actually fairly cheap, you've actually priced it as such, as a fairly cheap finished even though it's 80% of this specialised hydrolyzed product. It's amazing.
That's
very out of the norm.
And I mean, the thing is it's a bit like, I mean, I don't make the commercial decisions for them, but the more people that try it, the more people will realise, what it's good for. Now, despite all this technology that's gone into this, I mean, I still know because I mean, this we didn't do this last week or even last year.
Yeah.
So I mean, we've had a few people, before it was released, testing it and trying it and all the rest of it, and I would still refer to it as being a warm water bait, which is basically from May on to end of September. I think you get the best out of it then, or that's what it seems. And I don't know why that is.
Is that like lipid content, protein
it's
content?
Not really got. That's the bit that I haven't managed to get my head round, because from a fat content, it's not. It's 7-8%. It's not ridiculously
of
high.
The finished roll boil.
Yeah.
That's low.
It's not really high.
That's low.
Yeah, but it seems to definitely work better. Do you know what
the protein content is off the top of your head?
Well, the bits we do add to it, they're both quite high. They have a high protein content, so they keep it pretty high. It's in the upper 45 to 52.
Fairly high. Fairly high.
So it's pretty high.
That's pretty damn high. Actually.
Yeah, and I mean, So I mean, you can't knock it from. I mean, I know, because I mean we've looked at obviously, because this substance can be made. We've looked at using it for commercially feeding places, because obviously it's got a high nutritional value. I mean, which is a high nutritional availability. I used a word that I don't like. It's got a high nutritional availability, which probably wouldn't be of any interest to the the fish farming industry, but it might be to, a fisheries owners, the commercial side of carp fishing, because you use this as a feed bait, which is not expensive, or certainly a similar one. You can get good growth rates, and far better growth rates than you would get with a pellet.
Just from the boiler you sell.
So, yeah. So I mean, that's another thing that we've we've pursued, if you know what I mean, is looking at, because it is quite easy to produce, and the thing because the cake's produced in quite large quantities, you've got to do something with it there and then.
So it's obviously a very different product from other boilies on the market, but in terms of the carp's perspective, when they come across it, what their receptors are picking up on, do you feel that they would identify that as like radically different from other things they're used to, or not? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I know what you're trying to say. Initially, I mean, the results of the people that's used it has been really good, really, really good, and I mean that's what you've got to go on.
Yeah.
I mean, but when we turn it into a bait, we add a few little bits and pieces to it, obviously, to make it a bait. Because I mean, to get it to bind, to get it to to have a smell, so it's hard to say at this present moment in time if it's not that or that, because it's not been extensively used. I mean,
but do you think? Sorry to push you on this, but do you think? So, say if someone wanted to use a bait that the carp would see as very different, bearing in mind a lot of times we can think we're using a different bait, but ultimately the carp is still picking up on similar aminos, similar organic acids, aldehydes, etc. Do you think it's picking up on different? Is it lighting up different receptors within the carp or not?
Well, the fact is, it is such a different. I would suggest that is potentially its greatest asset.
It almost has to light up different things within the reception of the carp.
Yeah. I mean, so, but like I say, it's not been used
enough
massively. And I certainly would not recommend at this present moment in time people using it between the late autumn winter time. I just wouldn't, because they're not going to see it at its best, because
warmer weather it comes into its and this is called
the bait that grows is dark spell,
and that's 80% this hydrolyzed matter that you create.
Yeah, I mean, and the other bits that they're putting it, I mean, is again, the well-known stimulants. So I mean, and stuff that you would be quite happy about having in a carp bait. Because the cake's texture, it has to be to get it to be able to be a workable substance. We have to use the casein to get it to to bind and roll, basically. So I mean, you've got what's added to it is got high nutritional availability anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, the other product that we use is a type of hydrolyzed liver powder, which is well known for. It comes from the animal feed industry, which we was talking about yesterday.
What animal is it derived from?
Chicken.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. We were talking about liver a lot earlier. I was going to ask sort of where your preferences lie with different liver powders, so different sauces. Obviously, you talked about pork, chicken.
It's going to be
bovine.
Beef.
Yeah.
It's going to be beef, mate.
And whether they have different applications or whether you use them in different applications.
Because of the availability now of a lot of liver products, I mean, they're heavily controlled by lots of health certification.
Yeah.
I mean, if I could go back in time, there's no two ways about it. The liver powder that I would want, I no longer can get because it's never been available since the mad cow.
Yeah.
But I've got to say, chicken liver, the hydrolyzed chicken livers is the way I would always look now, without a doubt. They are very good. I mean, they seem to have. They have all all the things that you'd want.
Yeah.
If you wonder why we've gone a bit quiet, then is somebody's off to the bar. They have every. They have the taste. They have the amino acid profile. They're also because they're hydrolyzed. They're all short linked.
Yeah.
And I just think that if you look at it, if you look at the levels of certain amino acids in chicken liver, the high lysine, glycine contents, etc., straight away it's sort of like, and I never knew, back in when did the mad cow thing start? Probably 80s.
Yeah,
I never knew what the profiles was and etc. of the livers that we're using then.
Yeah.
I just knew what the effect they had on when I put them in my bait and how they changed it, from a smell, taste, and the results I got as a consequence of that. But we can't go back. It's a bit like what we said earlier. There's just things taken away from us.
I suppose if you're always thinking, I guess, with a commercial head on as well.
No, because luckily I'm in a position where it's not really. If it's commercially viable to be done, fine. But it doesn't matter if it's not, because it's my own. I don't care what anything costs. If it gets the end result for what I want, I don't care. And I mean, it makes me laugh this day and age because, I see people go carp fishing. They have to have the latest T5 Volkswagen transporter.
Yeah.
They've got to have a $3,500. And there's probably some people that's got even more bait boat. They've got to have best part of 10 to 12 grand worth of fishing kit, yet they'll search out and use the cheapest bait going.
Yeah.
And I mean, that just doesn't make sense to me.
No, it's upside down.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense at all. And I mean, if you want to be consistent with your results, the best, without doubt, if you buy a good quality bait that might cost you a bit, you'll end up with getting more results. And let's face it, we go fishing to catch fish. We don't go fishing to look good. Mind me, maybe saying might be wrong. I might be that so far removed from modern carp angling now that maybe that's not the case. Maybe you have got to look very carpy, and you've got to have your handles folded, and you've got to be, and it don't really matter what you catch as long as you look like that.
I think you're closer to the scene than you make out, mate. You're still getting in plenty of fishing.
Yeah, I do get a bit. I mean, I've got to say, I'm taking piss out of a few people here that I'm not going to mention the names of, which is all done in the best possible taste. But yeah, I mean, it's not something I understand all that.
What would you say are the top 3 underrated products available in this day and age?
Underrated products?
Yeah.
What are you talking?
Products, substances, whatever. Anything that we can get our hands on. What's underrated or perhaps
underrated that should be used?
Yeah, or perhaps not as well known as it could be. What 3 things do people
That's
need to put on the radar?
That's really thrown me a
put you on the
side
spot.
swipe because I mean, God, there's the one underrated. I've got to think about what the thing is I've got to get into minds of what people might think, might not know what I know, and if you're with me, let's
rephrase it slightly then. What would you say are the top 3 substances or products, whatever you want to call it, that are available to you now?
Couple of things that's available to me are, I mean, I've got links with people that normal people don't have links with.
All right, well, this,
that's what
this question
I'm saying.
I thought.
Yeah, what's available to everybody?
What's available to me then, say?
Yeah, available to you. Probably hydrolyzed chicken liver, which is one thing.
Really?
Yeah,
Chicken liver?
Yeah, hydrolyzed chicken liver.
Really?
Yeah, I think that's underrated. The other thing that I also think is very much underrated, and it's something that we used to use a hell of a lot in the past, which again I mentioned earlier, cod liver oil. You try a little bit of cod liver. Yeah, try when I say cod liver oil, try the best quality 7C stuff you can get.
I was going to say, is there a brand that you'd recommend?
Yeah, I've just told you.
7Cs.
The one, the best quality. That's another one that is underrated. Now, what else would be available that's underrated that I think about? I wonder how many people. This is really going to throw a curveball in because I did really well with these. How many people use kidney beans? Because I used to use tinned kidney beans. Don't bugger about boiling them and from them hard things. Just get a tin of kidney beans out at supermarket that's already cooked. How many people's actually tried them? I know me and a couple of mates absolutely emptied a lake with kidney beans.
Go on then. For you, particle, it's broad term, isn't it? But what would you say your number 1 particle is?
It'd always be hemp.
Yeah.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I can't think of anything that competes with it. I mean, I always split them. By the way, a particle to me is a mass bait. Hemp, tares, maple peas, anything like that, a seed. I don't class the nuts as a particle.
If you did class them as a particle,
I don't know. It's hard to say because I've always been. I've never been one to shy away from peanuts, despite the fact they were vilified.
Yeah.
On very loose information. But put it this way, this is the bit that gets me. They were vilified on one document, one paper that, and it wasn't fact. It was a paper that was produced. It was a possible, but then they got vilified.
To be fair, I mean, so Ken Townley might well be listening. He might well have something to say on that. I think he witnessed things down college. People putting in, unprepared peanuts en masse. Obviously, that's very different from a well-prepared peanut. It's been soaked and cooked, so it's swelled up. It's not going to swell in the belly. Yeah. Very different. For me, like when I asked that question, like in my mind, like I have never used anything as effective, particle-wise, as a peanut. But again, we have to do this, but like can't stress it enough for the listener. you need to soak your peanuts 48 hours, boil them correctly, half hour, go overboard with it, be safe than sorry. That's got to happen. But yeah, very, very effective bait.
But the problem that peanuts created is no different from the problem potentially for a lot of the other particles.
Yeah, as well, by the way, peanuts very high in phytic acid, which we spoke about earlier. Anti-nutrients, going to pull minerals away from the ability of the carp to digest.
But how many people do you think's been using peanuts and not known?
Well, in the nut baits, is that where you're going?
Correct.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
there is.
Jeff's nut bait, which comes in various guises from different companies.
Yeah,
that's done a lot of fish. Like a lot of people have fished with that, and it's caught well.
I'll put it this way: I've not seen any mass fatalities as a result of peanuts.
No.
Yet we seem to we still seem to want to wash over what the real issue is in bait, because nobody wants to address the elephant in the room. It's not peanuts; it's preservatives in bait.
Yeah, shelf lives.
Well, I won't say shelf lives. It's just preservatives. Let's not. It's preservatives.
Yeah. Because they get used. In freezer.
I mean, I would be far more concerned about people using shelf life baits. Well, I'll give you shelf life baits in my lake banned. Not allowed to use. I have no problem with people using any particle that's prepared properly, but I do have a problem with shelf life.
I remember the first time we spoke, about a month ago now. Yeah, you were the one thing that you were hot on was to ask me what bait I'm using and if it's a shelf life or not, which it definitely isn't. So yeah, no, I get it, and there's a reason for that, isn't it? So what is it about shelf life baits that you don't like and you don't want in your lake?
It's the products they use for preserving. They are. There's more evidence to suggest, and I mean, I don't have to reference papers. You've only got to go on internet. They're all there out on internet to show that proves that they have a detrimental effect on a carp's health, both digestive and both development, and I think the development has more effect on than growth. Because
what do you mean by development?
Growing, going from little baby carp to big carp,
right?
And I mean, when the first person that did a study on this, and it was a tank study he did, and I mean, I've quoted his name, a guy called Ash Gerder, and I listened, I saw his results, and basically he didn't finish it off as well as he did. But one thing that I can say is on his feed tests, he the fish he fed on peanuts, the fish he fed on maize, or it could have been sweet corn, the fish he fed on maggots, the fish he fed on boilies, survived. The fish he fed on shelf life baits died. They didn't get to the end of the study. And as a consequence of that, I think that threw a few flags up. And then since then, I wish I'd got his name in front of me, but it's professor of university in Vienna. He did a study on it.
I know exactly who you mean.
Yeah. And again, he threw up.
I think there was potentially some, I can't fucking remember for the life of me what there was. I think there was some holes in that study, to be honest. Not that I disagree with the findings, but I think that you could pick that apart, and I cannot remember why. Can you remember, Pete?
No, it's news to me.
News to you. There is a reason, and perhaps I'll revisit it in a later episode. But yeah, I agree with you. I'm the same with shelf lives.
The other thing is shelf life baits. A lot of them, besides some of the products that they use to make shelf lives, one of them propylene glycol. It's one molecule away from being a plastic. Do you want that in your water? It's never going to degrade. It's never going to vanish. It's never going to go away. We know about microplastics, but we're about molecular plastics.
Yeah,
what
exactly,
do we don't know about them? Sorry,
good point.
Yeah.
And then let's lead on to flavors. So obviously, a lot of flavors are MPG or PG based.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on those?
Don't use them.
You don't use flavors full stop? Or
No, I don't use
PG flavors?
well, it depends what you call a flavour. I don't use glycerine based flavours or MPG flavours. I just don't use them.
Ethyl alcohol.
I use them.
Yeah, that's mostly what we sell. Interestingly enough,
I use them. I've always been I don't use a lot of flavours, but if I'm going to use them, it's
ethyl alcohol.
Alcohol, ethanol flavours, I call them. It's easier
ethanol and ethyl alcohol, same thing.
But it's easier to say.
Yeah, ethanol. Yeah,
especially when you've had a few beers.
Which we definitely have.
Yeah. If you want to go on this about using alcohol-based stuff, a few years ago, it is quite a while ago. I started taking Baileys with me fishing.
Baileys.
You know Baileys?
Oh, Baileys. Yeah.
You know why I started taking it?
Go on.
Because I realised it was fantastic milk in coffee.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, but as a consequence of taking it, I had a little joke with an angler saying, "What's the Baileys for?" I said, "I'd use it as a bait dip."
Hasn't your mate
I
spoke about this?
I don't know, but it was only a joke. That I said. Next thing I know, I probably 18 months later, I read about people using Baileys as a bait dip, and it only started as a joke. But it doesn't surprise me because it's got alcohol in it, and it diffuses, and who knows?
I think it's got vanilla in it as well.
It's got lots of nice little things.
Maybe
in it.
some of us think that's
It's
valid.
it's a lovely. Let's face it. If you wanted to make a bait that actually smelt and tasted like we'd eat it.
Oh yeah.
But it has got a lot of nice things in it.
Yeah.
But that was I never used it as a glug bath. Even to this day I still haven't.
A lot of people do.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't. It's better off in my coffee.
Yeah.
I've got wasting on fish.
What about essential oils?
I've always been an advocate of essential oils.
Because obviously that was quite not a large section, but Nutribates used to sell a lot of essential oils.
Yeah, they
It was
did.
Nutribates and Bill's writings, amongst other people, obviously, that got me into essential oils. I'm massive on essential oils. Obviously, our listeners will know it's something we've done a ridiculous amount of research into.
Do you know the first company that actually sold? It wasn't Nutribates, the first one.
No, I know.
It was Cotswolds. But they were in very small quantities, and certainly not. There was probably 5. I think they sold about 5 or 6. So it was it was limited. But when Bill come along, they certainly extended it tremendously. And I've got to say that a lot of them were a bit of a waste of time, to be truthful. Mm-hmm. But there was certainly certain ones that were very, very good.
Which ones did you rate then?
I knew you were going to say that. I was going to get to that one.
Right.
Without a doubt, the ultimate one, black pepper. Without a doubt.
I'm with you there. You're not a fan, are you, Sam?
I think it's overrated. I really do.
No, black
I really
pepper.
do.
Black pepper, without a doubt, that I would always put as number one. Believe it or not, the next one I put in is one that I don't know. It probably has been extensively used. Asafoetida.
Yeah.
Or, as we used to call it, arse in a swim feeder.
Yeah. Devil's done.
Yeah. The next one would be geranium.
Yeah.
Well, and I struggled here when I was thinking about it because I didn't know whether I would put geranium and clove together.
I would have thought-
Especially if they're mixed together.
Here we go.
Yeah.
In what ratio?
50-50. Yeah.
But the problem from that is geranium varies so much batch to batch. So does clove.
Yeah.
You got that to contend with.
Yeah. But them two, I had a period where I used that combination. In fact, when I fished Duncan Caves back in mid-90s.
Would you have added that with a flavour, or you just have that on top?
Just
that's it. Just the label.
Just them two. And the other one, which is one that I used, it was the first one I ever used. I did it. I wasn't quite sure why I got the results I got from it, because I used a combination of that and a couple of other things. A pig nectar at the same time.
What?
Oh, the essential oil, by the way, is ginger.
I was going to say pig nectar.
Then I used a thing called pig. It was a pig nectar,
Right.
which is basically a product that they sweeten pig silage up with.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And
There's a few products still around like that.
oh yes, and I wasn't so sure which one was actually doing the job for me, if you know what I mean. So I didn't have time to work out which, by sort of taking one out and leaving one in, but that's why I use it in conjunction with that. So that's it really. All the others I don't particularly rate, to be honest with you. Even garlic oil, which is one that a lot of people that I don't. But
This
as
is one of
garlic,
Pete's, little.
Yeah, I'm a garlic oil fan. I have to say.
but I'd rather use garlic if I'm going to use it in a different form from an essential oil.
Added after, not boiled.
No,
or-
like
But
garlic
having to boil it.
powders, crystal garlic, more.
See,
less
it's very
concent-
easy to overdo it with garlic,
Oh,
though, isn't
God,
it?
oh,
Fuck
it's
me,
ridiculous.
small amounts.
But garlic's a very, very, very good additive to having in a bake, because it does. If you've got whole garlic, it really does help a carp.
See, well, I want you to expand on that. What's your thoughts on BP Milling? I don't know if you're familiar with these guys. Sustainable fish feed. He's using a garlic product. He has it specially made for him. He applies it after production, so the allicin isn't denatured from heat.
Yeah.
And it's all about, warding off Argulis, different parasites that the carp has. Do you have any opinion on garlic and the sort of husbandry side of carp or not?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it could go back. I'm trying to think how long it is ago, but it's quite a while since I walked into somebody's shed on a big fish farm, and as I walked past one of the many sacks of pellets that got on there, I could smell garlic, and he says, "Yeah, you will." He says, "Because they're in them bags there." Why? And then he explained to me, why white fish farmers feed garlic.
Whitefish farmers.
What? Why?
Why
They do it?
Yeah.
And like you've just said it all. So I mean, why not? I mean, if you're gonna feed fish something that I mean, from a fishery owner, I quite like the idea of people using garlic. The proper garlic in bait, because I know it's going to improve the health of the fish. Because I mean, it, like you say, it has a parasite deterrent. It also is a very good antibiotic.
Yeah.
Antibacterial. Antibacterial.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you had too many beers.
No,
So I mean, so why wouldn't you?
I've been the last few years fermenting it in raw honey and using the brine from the raw honey.
Whoa. Let's go back a bit. You've been fermenting garlic in raw honey.
Yeah.
Why?
Why? Well, raw honey's full of enzymes.
Yeah.
for a
I
start.
know it is. Yeah.
It obviously removes the garlic, so you crush the garlic, so you're getting that sort of antibacterial sort of properties. Really starting to do it with like raw onion and things, and I've been actually doing garlic, ginger, and raw onion sort of mixes, like trying different things. It's quite interesting. I just don't have enough sort of time and things to test it en masse, and I've been playing with like using it in hook baits essentially, and
Yeah. Did you ever see that recipe for making a carp bait? And it was took the flesh of a rabbit, macerate it.
Oh yeah, fuck.
And he ended up preserving it in honey.
Isaac Walton.
Yeah, well, yeah, supposedly, because if you've ever read any of the,
It could have been written by someone else, basically, couldn't it?
Well, the other part about if you read, because Isaac Walton wrote in an English style and way different to what we would write English today. I don't our language has changed.
It's a hard book to read.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So,
but I think everyone should read it.
No matter where I've never found that. Even though I've read that recipe, I've never found it in his writing. But I mean, if it is correct, because I mean, Carp did swim around. I mean, it was bizarre that I can't remember where I was down near Chepstow, down that area, and we went to a village, a town stroke, which was quite well known, which I can't remember the bloody name of. But the only thing I can remember is there's a plaque on a bridge that says that, they used to catch carp and stuff from this river for food.
That's not Nailsworth, is it?
I've no idea, but we're a lovely little town, and it was, you were going back a long way, and these carp were in river. Well, if you look at all Isaac Walton's ramblings and it was all river fishing, so they were catching carp if that was set from rivers. I mean, but I've digressed. But anyway, going back to, he preserved his rabbit flesh preparation. I mean, there is a thing. Nobody's ever used rabbit since him.
There was a good rabbit flavour though, wasn't there?
You've got me there because I can't remember.
DT Bates, the original Dave Thorpe.
Yeah.
He had a rabbit flavour that was good.
Yeah.
Long time.
No, that's rabbit. I mean, rabbit's lovely. I mean, it's a
oil based, I believe.
Well, there's not a lot of oil in rabbit. It's very good for you. Yeah, but going back to he preserved the baits in honey.
Yeah,
rolled them into thing and again, going back to what you just said earlier, it makes you wonder how much of the effectiveness going back that was actually nothing to do with the rabbit fresh. It was all to do with the honey.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.